welcome to this week's edition of SC and Scrappy. And I don't know about you, Lucas, and it's been a busy few days, a busy weekend. I know it was a busy weekend for you because you were down in Perry, Georgia at Cars Chaos Duels. Lots of action down there. Can you give me I wasn't in the gym, so what was it like?
Lots of good wrestling on the high school side for the boys. I wasn't there, but I heard lots of talk about Team Wonder Bread and Storm in the final. Basically came down to the final match. On the girls' side, lots of real good wrestling. Team Fierce and Scrappy, we finished 5th in freestyle, 3rd in folk style. I mean, it was, as you could hear, my throat is very much feeling the effects of yelling at my athletes for 6 duels straight. We are a bit under the weather this evening, but we rock and roll. But lots of good wrestling across the Southeast this weekend as a whole.
Yeah, so just so everybody knows, like from the top, right? I think we're going to talk about a few individual performances, but there was so much wrestling that occurred. There's no way to get to everybody. Number 2, North Carolina, Florida both had their Super 32 early entry tournaments, so we're going to touch a little bit on that. Lucas dropped his South Carolina team rankings, preseason team rankings, which is garnering a little bit of
I'm getting
talk.
Clapped. I'm getting clapped and wanting to.
Florida, I dropped the preseason rankings for Florida, so we'll talk a little bit about that. Then we shift to Elite 8, which is the premier event not only in the Southeast but nationally this coming weekend. You talked to Coach Ziola about Dynasty and them coming into town, and then you and I are going to go through Elite 8 a little bit in the second half of the show. Does that work for you?
Works for me.
All right. So I saw a couple things on social media, and I didn't get to see the matches actually, but Durbin Carpenter, man, had himself another weekend. JJ Peace down at Cars Duels, wrestled super well. You didn't get to see any of those matches though, did you?
No. So the way it worked was the girls' individual was the same day as the high school duels for the boys. So I was over on the other side of the gym. Now, I did hear about Carpenter knocking off Pierce. Please excuse me. I did hear about that. I did not see it with my own eyes, though.
Yeah, and then I think Bilardo actually beat JJ Peace as well. I'm really interested, and this is done again. It's a little asterisk. It's not to take anything away from anyone that we're going to talk about this weekend, from this past weekend, as far as winning goes.
Away from those who wrestled this past weekend.
I'm sorry.
As a but to take something away from those who wrestled this past weekend.
So the question I have is was it like the Georgia Super 32 early entry tournament where it was a 2-1-1?
I don't know. I know the girls wrestled 130, 130, 130 in folk style. And then we wrestled 2 minutes and 2 minutes in freestyle.
Okay. I know Florida was 2-1-1. And
by the way, speaking of the event and the way it was run, I want to give a shout out to War Promotions, Micah, Dylan, and the whole crew. Once again, I don't have a single complaint about the way the tournament was run. They're fantastic. And if you are looking to host a tournament, and I'm saying this as someone who did my own tournament running, so I understand the struggles, War might be the way to go. They do awesome stuff. So quick shout out to them.
Well, and going back to that is, I don't know if it was a full length match or not. And honestly, I think Durbin ended up beating JJ like 9-1. So it's not as if it came down to the last second or anything like that. But I will say, I know Florida was 2-1-1, and it's tough to wrestle 2/3 of a match, a regular high school match. I'm a big fan of 2-2-2 consolation state tournament. I don't understand why we go 2-1-1. So I always kind of keep that in the back of my head, because I do know the difference between 4 minutes and 6 minutes can be significant.
Oh, absolutely. Like I'm almost at the point where if you're going to shorten it, go 130, 130, 130. Because at least then it's the same length each period.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. Because,
It-
if you get somebody who can ride for a minute, I mean,
yeah,
that
you're in
that
trouble.
period's gone.
Yeah, you're in lots of trouble.
All right. Not to belabor that, let's jump to there's a couple other outstanding individuals or other individuals that had some outstanding weekends, but we'll probably talk a little bit about those when we're talking about the actual recap of the actual event. So let's jump to North Carolina first and the champions up at their Super 32 early entry tournament.
At 106 pounds, it was Cooper Foster. 113, Aiden Summers. 120, Caden Glass. 126, Kyle Gibson. 132, Spencer Reap. 138, Cameron Helton. 144, Luke Murray. 150, Bo Lewis. 157, Caleb Neal. 65, Joey DeVelio. 175, Jay Eversole. 190, Zaid Martin. 215, Gavin Hardister, and 285, DeAndre Johnson.
Yeah, and one of the things that's really interesting about North Carolina was, in years past, the brackets haven't been overly large. I think this year's Super 32 early entry tournament was much larger than it has been in the past. That is awesome. Cooper Foster from Avery County at 106 pounds is a stud. He is a returning state champion, super tough. But two things really stood out to me about the North Carolina early entry tournament, just at a glance. And I wasn't there, so I can't tell you what happened on the mats, right?
Yeah.
But through the middle part of this, right, you see great bridge wrestler, great bridge wrestler, great bridge wrestler. I mean, I saw. You weren't with me at Holy Angels last year, were you?
No,
Okay.
no.
Right. So I mean, I've seen the Great Bridge wrestlers wrestle a couple different times. I don't think they were at Holy Angels, but they have wrestled super, super well. Seen them a lot of different places, and they showed out. The other thing is that I think, and again, Tennessee people can correct me if I'm wrong, but Spencer Reed, Cameron Helton, Jay Eversole, they might all be Lakeway Christian wrestlers, and that's another thing to kind of keep in mind. And I think it was 126 where
132.
132 where Spencer Reed beat returning state champion Bentley Sly in the finals. That's a solid final. That's some solid wrestling, really, really good wrestlers. If you look down at 150, Cedric Griffin from Hoke County, I think Cedric came down to Georgia last weekend and took fourth at the weight. Now takes second at the North Carolina one. Man, he's just racking up matches in the preseason. Going wherever he can to get as many matches as possible.
Absolutely.
So, all right. So let's move from North Carolina. Before I move on, was there anything that stood out to you that you wanted to say?
I mean, you kind of hit on it. The fact that Lakeway Christian had a couple of champs and just things of that nature, and the size of the brackets looked much larger. So that really you hit on the two I had.
All right. Let's make a jump to Super 32 in early entry tournament in Florida. Champs?
Yep. What?
Champs?
Yep. Your champions at 106 pounds, Malachi Ortiz. 113, Liam Davis. 120, Cameron French. 126, Giovanni Solis. 132, Jace Paradin. 138 pounds, Mikkel Pierce Walker. 44, it was Austin Chung. At 150, Gianni Maldonado. 157, Gavin Balmaceda. 165, Fat and Scrappy Families, Conlon Weaver. 175, Gunnar Holland. 190, Fat and Scrappy member, Ryder Wilder. 215, Aiden Wolf. And 285, Peyton Framer.
So, just at first glance of the names you just read out, those are just hammers.
Oh, not one there is a step down from the rest. Those are 14 great weight classes.
Right. And there were there were 600, 700 kids in the high school division. They broke it into 106 to 144 in the morning and then 150 heavier guys in the afternoon. And I'll tell you what, I mean, it's hard to pick out how tough the toughest weight class here, but I think the probably standout performance had to go to 126-pound Giovanni Solis.
Bring him in! Bring him in! Bring him in and tackle! Yeah!
Did you see the clip?
I caught some clips. I did not see any of the matches.
So he beat two-time state champion Max Brady in the finals 4-3. He beat I'm trying to think. He beat Charlie DeSena from Lake Highland Prep and sudden victory, like in the quarterfinals. I mean, 126 was so deep. Luis Acevedo, who was a 3A 120-pound state champion, didn't finish in the top 4.
That's nuts.
That is nuts. And then
Solis just continues to look better and better every time he steps on a mat.
Yes, absolutely. And just to give the Georgia people who might be watching some level of understanding of the competition, because we're saying names that you may not necessarily understand. 113, your 106-pound 7A state champion, Bradley Patterson, took 3rd at 113. Hunter Prosen took 4th at 120. Now Conlon Weaver won at 157 pounds or so. And 165, and Ryder Wilder won up at 190. But that's the level of competition that you had at this tournament, which was super good. And then the last one, the last weight I want to really talk about very quickly, and I could talk about like tons of these, and we could spend a lot of time, but there's just no way. Like if we're gonna get through everything that we're gonna get through, there's just no way. And that is 144, Austin Chung of Lake Gibson. He beat Zeno Moore, and then he beat Draven McCall, Florida State champion, in the finals 4-2. I mean, Chung, who I think was a state placer, maybe like finished 6th, 7th, or 8th, took out 2 of the best guys in the weight class to win 144. I mean, just a superb performance.
Had himself a weekend.
He did. All right, man. Let's transition to a little bit of controversy in the Palmetto State with your your rankings of South Carolina. And to be fair to you, they're not all controversial, right? I mean, that you actually, I mean, there was just really one classification where the responses were kind of like, oh, you picked
where I'm getting hooked.
But it in other places that's not the case. So let's talk about like 4A, for example. I don't think anybody is disputing that Eastside is the team to beat in 4A.
I mean, they can. They're just wrong. They can. Be my guest, but you're wrong.
All right, so let's count down 4A real quick. I'm going to count it down, and then you're going to give me your feedback. So South Florence, 10. James Island, 9. Easley, 8. Lugoff, Belgian, 7. Indian Land, 6. May River, 5. Northwestern, 4. Belton Head, 3. Greenwood, number 2. And Eastside, number 1. Is Eastside not... Are they number 1 in 4A and number 1 in the entire state, in your opinion?
Yes, they at this point have a 0.4 lead over Dorman, which I actually think after seeing the Super 32 qualifier and a couple of their cats get after it, that lead might grow when we get to the preseason rankings post Super 32. It just looks like Eastside is going to continue their run of being the dominant program in the state of South Carolina.
Yeah, and certainly, and 4A is tough. I mean, there's some really good programs in 4A, but Eastside is they're a special squad. They're a top 25 squad across the Southeast, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And team I want people watching out for is Lugoff Elgin. Watch out for them. They probably can finish top 4 if a couple things go their way.
All right. So let's jump up to 5A. And number 10, your number 10, Carolina Forest. Number 9, Chapin. Number 8, Burns. Number 7, River Bluff. 6, Fort Dorchester, who I believe Ricky Springs wrestles for Fort Dorchester. And if you haven't seen Ricky Springs wrestle, he is super good. 5, Fort Mill. 4, Somerville. 3, Cane Bay. 2, Ashley Ridge. And number 1, Dorman. So why Dorman being 1?
So they returned the most points in overall. I mean, they look like the most balanced lineup of the group. They did graduate a few of their state placers from last season, but at this current moment, they're the only team in that classification to me that is still looking rather balanced. Now, obviously, once weights break out and people get bigger, they get smaller, they cut, it's going to look very different. But just at this current moment, they look like the ones to me that if I had to put my money down today, I would on Dorman.
All right.
In both and individual.
So, well, and I think that's actually important because we haven't actually touched on that real quick. And that is, this is combined. This is duals and traditional meshed together. And I can tell you from doing Florida's, I have, one team kind of ranked higher in duals and another team ranked higher in traditional, and how that meshes together to come together for a one power ranking is sometimes hard.
Yeah, it for sure leads to some interesting results that sometimes have to be taken with context.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, and I'm going to throw out just real quick on my write-up where in SE Wrestle Plus, I basically said, I think that you better watch out for Somerville. But you know what? We'll see. We'll see how it all plays out. All right. 3A. Number 10, Daniel. Number 9, Lakewood. 8, Chester. 7, Clinton. 6, Woodruff. 5, Battery Creek. 4, Gilbert. 3, Anor. 2, BHP or Belton Honea Path. And number 1, West Oak, who another team who is super good. And the question I have in 3A is, how close do you think 1 and 2 are? I know it's 0.2 on your thing, but
so the way
man, on paper, they look close.
They're super close, and actually on paper, I have BHP as the better traditional team.
All
as
right.
It stands.
But not in duals.
Duals, I have West Oak. If you ask me today, that would be how it would break out.
All right.
It's really interesting because I think that they kind of separate themselves from Anor and Gilbert, but I think that 3 through 6 spot is super wide open.
I agree with you. And I think I wrote that in my take on what you wrote, is that 3 through 6 and maybe even down to 10. I mean, there's a lot of kind of could be fluctuation within that group.
At 9, Lakewood, if they get some things to go their way and get a couple guys onto the podium that qualified last year, they could very easily be in the top 5 hunt. Easily, very easily.
All right, so let's jump to 1A, 2A, the smallest classification, the classification that, I mean, if I'm being completely honest, it's the one that I know probably the least amount because I don't see them in a lot of places. 10, North Central. 9, Edisto. Number 8, Timberland. 7, Bishop England. And my favorite logo, the Bishop England Battling Bishops.
I agree.
I mean, that's just great. 6, Buford. 5, Dixie. 4, High Point. Really like High Point. 3, Chesney. 2, Liberty. And number 1, 96. And boy, I'll tell you what, Liberty people are looking at it going, there's no way we are number 1.
I'm getting hooked from the Liberty. And I mean, with reason, Liberty returns the most points and looks, but as you can see there, it's 0.3. I think them and 96 will be in a dogfight to win that title. I don't subscribe to the belief that some people have that that's going to be a dog walk in the favor of Liberty. I do think that'll be a really, really good race. And just at the current moment, with the way my matrix spit it out to me, I have 96 over them.
All right. Jumping down to the girls, number 10, Somerville, number 9, South Florence, 8, Greer, 7, Rock Hill, 6, Blythewood, 5, Ashley Ridge, 4, Gaffney, 3, Clover, 2, Lancaster, and 1, Greenwood. And my take at the bottom was this, and that was, look, I know a lot of the girls in South Carolina based upon their kind of Fargo experience, right? You know, Zio Estrada or Annalise Marillet or others. I don't know the teams and the depth of the teams as well. If we look to last year's state tournament, I think Greenwood and Lancaster, they return a lot. But I mean, how good are they going to be? I mean, that's a question.
So that's kind of that's one of the big things for me where I kind of had to be honest and say I'm a little out of my gourd here on the girls' side. I need some more. And what's good is some of the teams from South Carolina, you know, guys like May Holtz, Micah, at War, and a few of the other people I've started talking to, that they've started telling me that they're going to help me out a little bit more just to get more information. Because like some of these teams I didn't have a lot of information on. Like the issue I had with Lancaster was I can't find a lot of their results outside of the state tournament. I just can't. I don't know where they are. So
yeah, well,
it's almost, on the girls' side, it's almost similar to Chastity, where for the girls in Georgia, Chastity, I can't find results of them. So it's sometimes tough for me to rank them. It's the same type of a thing here.
Yeah. And I will say this, that's true with select programs all over the place. I will say, and that's both boys and girls, but I will say girls, I mean, if you want to be ranked, and girls coaches, if you want things like this, make it easier, right? Make it easy for us to get the information.
Please.
Am I right?
Like, and I'm not saying that you have to put your tournaments on track, but if you go to an event and know it's not on track, send your boy the brackets. Like, the one that kills me is Coal Mountain in North Forsyth every year. Right. Shout out to Greenbrier and Epstein sent me all the brackets, but like, fam, help a dude out, please. That's all I ask. A little bit of help. God's sakes.
All right. So you know
when you don't help me, you're gonna yell at me, and it's gonna be my fault that I don't know. Like that's gonna happen.
Everyone in South Carolina and Florida, because we're getting ready to do Florida, these are preseason. So I did this actually before. It's going to come out after the Florida Super 32 early entry tournament, but this was done before, just so everybody knows. So, you know, and same sort of thing for Lucas's in South Carolina, right? You get kids going to different places. We haven't really factored in the last 2 weeks into these things. So you have to keep that in mind as well. All right. So will you jump us off and count down for Florida?
Oh, yes. Yes. I was not ready to. Hang on. And my computer's being slow. Oh, Jesus.
Do you want me to do it? As you're waiting?
Give me a second, because I'm going to pull it up on my phone, which will be quicker. Jason, how about you walk us through the Florida rankings while I try to get this nonsense to load?
All right, let's start with the girls, since we finished with the girls for South Carolina. Number 10, North Miami. Number 9, Gulf Breeze. 8, Bartram Trail. 7 is Middleburg. 6, Mater Lakes. 5, Hernando. 4, Apopka. 3, Oakleaf. 2, Orlando Freedom. And your number 1 team, Coach Freeze's Matanzas squad, who returns a ton of points. We saw several of their girls this summer competing. They are tough. We've seen a lot of girls from Oakleaf, the Barrientos. We saw Freedom girls. We saw Hernando with Grace Leota. North Miami, Maya Bethel, and all of them. Middleburg has Cheyenne Cruz. So there's a lot of girls part of these teams that are in the top 10, but you don't win a state title as a team, or you don't get to that level with 1 or 2. Orlando Freedom, like, you know, put 8 on the podium, or I don't know how many, but they put on the podium, but they were a team, and that's what you're going to need to have to win it. And so for right now, my number 1 team in the state of Florida is Matanzas for the girls. What do you think?
I don't disagree. So Florida is really similar to Georgia, where there's not a lot of times that a lot of the super studs are like they're kind of lone wolves. But you also do have teams like Matanzas where they got a couple. I mean, Kendall Bibla, just to name one,
Right.
with her sister last year now at Mount Olive. I for the most part agree. Like there was nothing there that sticks out to me that I was like, I don't necessarily agree with.
All right. So let's jump to 1A. Do you have it up or no? You do not. All right. So I'm going to do it. Number 10, Bernardina Beach. Number 9, Yulee. 8, Florida High. 7, Swanee. 6, First Baptist Naples. 5, Zephyr Hills Christian. Number 4, Jensen Beach. 3, Cardinal Gibbons. 2, Mater Lakes Academy. And your number 1 team in Florida, 1A power ranking, in my opinion, is Somerset Academy. We already talked about Giovanni Solis earlier. He is a member of Somerset Academy. He is an 8th grader after winning a state title last year as a 7th grader. But Somerset Academy isn't just Giovanni Solis. I mean, you've got Kendrick Hodge. You've got nationally ranked wrestlers throughout that lineup. Somerset is super tough. And you know what's tough for a lot of the 1A schools is, where does Giovanni Solis's older brother wrestle?
South Dayton.
Right. So after this year, I'd venture to guess Giovanni Solis will be at South Dayton. Won't be at Somerset any longer. Zephyr Hills Christian has several very, very good wrestlers, but they move on. They went to Tampa Jesuit, or they went to Eastlake, or they went wherever. So it happens. It's going to be really interesting. Mater Lakes, Cardinal Gibbons, and Jensen Beach, it doesn't seem like they have that kind of attrition the same way. But yeah, I think it's going to be fun. If you look at the 1A rankings, the power rankings, from again, my opinion, number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4 are all in the same region, the South region in the state of Florida. That means they have to battle one another to get to the state tournament.
Jesus. Get your popcorn, lads.
No doubt. No doubt. So do you have any opinions on 1A, or am I spot on?
At least from what I know, and again, I've made it clear that Florida is not the state that I am the most knowledgeable about. But I'd say from what I know, sounds good. I really like Mater Lakes, and I think that they are very much in the race, even though the state tournament came down to Jensen Beach and Somerset last season. I like Mater Lakes, and I like what I've seen out of their guys in the offseason, so I wouldn't be surprised to see them close the gap between 2 and 3.
You know, so one of the things that's really interesting about duels, because this takes into account duels and not, and in duels, they don't seed in the state of Florida, and they kind of seed in the state of Georgia. They do seed in the state of Alabama. How important do you think seeding is in those duels to get the 2 best teams into the finals?
I don't necessarily disagree that it's important. However, by the same token, I think Florida's system of going singular dual meets, I think to an extent, I don't know. I think there are positives and negatives to both.
All right, let's jump to 2A. Number 10, Braden River. Number 9, Winter Springs. 8, Merritt Island. 7, Heritage. 6, Manatee. 5, Brandon. 4, Charlotte. 3, Fleming Island. Number 2, Tampa Jesuit. And number 1, Lake Gibson. Lake Gibson graduated a ton. 2 years ago, Tampa Jesuit graduated, I think, 5 champions. But boy, they've got some freshmen coming in. Jesuit's going to be tough. Can Lake Gibson hold them off? Fleming Island is always tough, but they lose Jace Paradin to Lake Highland Prep. That's hurts a little bit.
Yeah, that's really hurt.
Yeah, but in my opinion, I think it's down to the top few teams kind of battling it out with one another. You've seen both Lake Gibson, Tampa Jesuit, Fleming Island kids kind of all over the place over the summer and everything else. Do you have an opinion on which of those teams might be the best?
Man, watch out for Jesuit. Like, Gibson is good. Man, I almost want to say I might take Jesuit today like looking outside, looking in. If they get so obviously depends on matchups in a dual meet situation, but
Yeah, it does.
both of those programs are going to push the best out of each other.
I agree. All right, so let's jump to 3A. George Jenkins, number 9, Buchholz.
Classification.
Say what?
AKA classification of Dade and the rest.
Yeah, well, that's true. 10, George Jenkins, 9, Buchholz, 8, Miami Columbus, 7, Doral Academy, 6, Haggerty, 5, Harmony, 4, Southwest Miami, 3, Wellington, 2, Osceola out of Kissimmee, and like Lucas just said, number 1, South Dade, which man, last year's team was so very good. This year's team is so very good. I don't think that there's any question that South Dade is number 1 in 3A.
I don't think anyone would either. And I think at this point, that's kind of just status quo.
Right. Which of those teams below them do you think will battle to the closest to the end?
I mean, my gut wants to say Osceola, but that could very well just be from like seeing them more and talking to their crew more. Wellington's always tough, but I don't want to say it's a fruitless effort, but it's gonna take a lot to beat Dade in a dual or individual setting. It's gonna take a lot.
I agree, and I think that Osceola, because you see Heap and Holland and their studs and that sort of thing, and they've got really good wrestlers a little further down as well. But I mean, Heap and Holland are going to be pushed by whoever it is from South Dade. They may not lose, but it's still going to be they're still going to be pushed. Whereas some of the South Dade hammers, I don't know that there's a place, someone in the lineup for Osceola that can push an EJ Solis. I just don't know that exists.
I don't disagree with you. I don't. Dade's are so good, man. Like
they are. That they are super good. And let me put you real quick on the spot. How good are they in the Southeast?
Top 3 for sure. Right. So I think Baylor, them, I think Camden.
What about Lake Highland Prep?
Forget about them because they're not.
I know.
So I think that's your 4, though. Lake Highland, Dade, Camden, and Baylor.
All right. You know what?
I mean, who else do you want to throw in there? Jefferson,
Cleveland, Tennessee.
Yeah, Cleveland's tough.
But I'm with you. I mean, look, I'm not disagreeing, and we're going to get to a top 25 in the preseason, not the preseason. I want to get all the preseason states out of the way and have a basic understanding before we delve into a top 25.
We're going to get killed for it, right? No matter what we do.
Oh, no doubt. I mean,
slaughtered. No matter what we do.
All right. This weekend, you and head to Atlanta, dude. And you know what? And everybody's like, well, you're pretty close to Atlanta anyway. Yeah, we're pretty close. But you know what? We're going to be joined by so many quality wrestlers from all over the country. Some of the best college coaches will be in town to watch the premier event. Maybe one could argue the premier event, high school event in the fall. I mean, I know Super 32 has that level, but
so this is that not argument, but this is that discussion me and Mike Mal had, where the reason I will agree that it's the premier event is because the easy matches at this event are guys that are going to win state titles and be in the hunt at any major national tournament they go to. They're going to be in the hunt to place. That's your easy matches. There is no local kids that just want to wrestle on the weekend. There is no football guy that's like, you know what, I'll wrestle this weekend after our game in Greensboro. If you're at this event, not only are you a great wrestler, you are a wrestling person, and this is what you want to do. Like, this is the creme de la creme, cream of the crop. Like, this is it for me. I feel like this every year produces the best show of who really got it.
I agree. All right. So should we introduce your interview with Coach Ziola first and then delve into it?
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah. So I got the chance last week, or the end of last week before I left for Cars, to talk to my good friend Coach Tim Ziola from Dynasty, and yeah, we had a real fun conversation. So here that is. What is up, Fat and Scrappy family? It is September the 7th. I am here with Coach Timothy Ziola of Team Dynasty. Coach, thank you for taking the opportunity and getting on the horn with me.
Completely my pleasure. Anything for you, you know that.
Thank you, man. So obviously we're looking in the windshield, and Elite Eight is coming in Atlanta, Georgia this next weekend. Once again, Compound and Cliff Fretwell, guys at HCB, Rockfin, Dolomer, and the whole gang. They've done it once again. An amazing event coming up here in Atlanta. Let's talk about that for a second. So Dynasty was at the first Elite Eight, and they've basically been to everyone since, both folk and free. Kind of talk about what the thought process is like in continuing to bring squad of killers that you always do down to the Deep South, to Atlanta, to compete with everybody.
I mean, first and foremost, we think it's the best high school dual tournament of the year. And no disrespect to our friends at any of the other venues. I just think the reality is that, you know, Shane Chittum and Cliff Fretwell absolutely kill it when it comes to venue, competition, efficiency, officials, announcers, media. I mean, there's virtually nothing I would change, other than I think if we win, we should get in free the following year. But I floated that idea, but it wasn't greeted with the reception I would hope it was. But you know, I mean, it's interesting because now that our guys, you know, we had a young squad, and a lot of our guys are now kind of getting into that recruiting process. That June 15th of sophomore year going into junior year is here. And we've got a significantly larger appreciation for this recruiting process because, you know, a lot of our guys are getting recruited by a lot of the big top D1 schools. And to get an opportunity to talk to those coaches and see all the people that have been coming, you really appreciate it even more when you're kind of knee deep in that recruiting process. So I think it's a fabulous event. Frankly, it's the only high school event that Dynasty has on our schedule, and we don't see that changing as long as Cliff and Shane don't jump the shark on us, which I don't believe they will.
No, I mean, that's entirely, I mean, coming from my perspective as well on the media side of things, I've got to work at a lot of great events. I've been blessed to do commentary at Elite Eight, obviously Super 32, the Knockout Christmas Classic. And it just seems that every year they find a way to improve on something that all of us that year before would have said, oh, this is the best one ever. They really knocked it out of the park. And they continue to find ways to develop it and enhance it and improve it. And, you know, speaking of kind of developing and enhancing, how do you get better than the team you had last season? I mean, you come down to Elite Eight in the summer, and from the word go, it looked like you guys were the team to beat. You end up taking the robes, Dynasty's first championship at Elite Eight. Kind of walk us through that, you know, coming into the tournament. Was there kind of that feeling of that this is our year? Like, just kind of talk about that for a second.
Yeah. I mean, there's no question that we felt that it was our year. You know, we had a ton of success through the elementary school, middle school. Our guys were a little bit young. You know, you've got the names, the Bassetts and the Forests and the Bouzacases and the Ziolas and, you know, the Monorettos and the Nobles. You know, those guys were young, a little bit of maturity, a little bit of opportunity to get everybody to come together. And look, I never want it overlooked. It seems like so many times it becomes about this great team that I put together. And by the way, it's not me. I got a whole bunch of guys that help me and gals that help me with it. But the reality is these young kids kill themselves in the room. I mean, you know, you've got guys on the team that were Division I football recruits that said, you know what, I just want to wrestle. And they make that decision and their trajectory changes and they get so much better. I mean, Seth Mendoza was with us a lot growing up. He hadn't been with us a month. I reached out to Mike, and they were excited to be with us. So I mean, it's a little bit of some of the old OG guys, some newer guys, but at the end of the day, we've kind of always had this extreme belief that we were the team to beat. We just knew that we were a little bit young, especially at some of our bigger weights. And now, as some of our guys have really grown and matured, I think we got a team that can maybe pull it off again.
I cannot disagree with you. I mean, so not to give out too much insider trading, but of course, as the rosters get kind of confirmed, us media members, we start being able to see the rosters a little early. And I'm not going to talk names and weights because again, but your team, Jesus Christ, there's a 7 in a row that I'm like, if they go undefeated in these 7 weights, I'm not surprised. Like there's a run there you guys have. And when the rosters come out, the fans will know exactly the run I'm talking about. So for a coach, how is that like walking into an event, the defending champions, the bullseye's on your back, but you gotta feel like this is another roster that is primed and ready to try to get a second robe. I mean, it has to be, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, there's no, we want the bullseye on our back. I mean,
yeah.
No, we've got, what I think is cool is that we've got world champs and we've got world team members on our team that are saying, no, it's fine. If you want me to go this way, I'll go this way if it helps the team. I don't know if that's a function of great parenting, if it's a function of leadership, if it's a function of maturity. Hopefully it's a mixture of all. But I mean, yeah, there's no question, Monaretto, Mendoza, Forrest, Bassett, that's a pretty nice murderer's row there. Cliff told me that he's releasing the roster today. So it's not super inside anymore. Actually, he's going to tweet out our roster today, and he's been slowly trickling them out. But I mean, we've got a whole crew of guys. We've got a whole crew of parents and coaches that are all pulling in the same direction. I know I went into Penn State's room. I've been in there a few times, and you look against the wall, and you've got Coach Kale, and you've got David Taylor, and you've got Bo Nickel, and you've got Varner, and you've got Coach Casey, and world champions and Olympic gold medalists and all these guys, and they all coalesce and they all get along. And so I think that it's a testament to their process, and it's something that we've tried to emulate. I mean, we really generally and genuinely don't deal with any me guys on this in this organization, and it makes it so fun. It makes it so easy to write the check. It makes it so easy to show up because everybody's going to be on weight. Everybody's going to come ready to scrap. And, everybody has an extreme belief in our process and winning. So
absolutely. I mean, and I think the big thing you mentioned there is, and I feel like, for any high school parent out there, I feel like that's a really good thing to kind of talk about is, especially if your son is getting ready to possibly get into the recruiting process, whether it's for a college or a club team. I mean, running Team Fat and Scrappy as well, it's the same kind of principle where sometimes you look at the parent and you almost got to be like, do I want to deal with this parent for this athlete to be on my roster?
Yeah.
But
100%. I mean, my big takeaway from this recruiting process, and I actually kind of did a Facebook post. I've been taking kind of copious notes on the process. My son Kate has been going through it, and it's been crazy. It's been great. 0 complaints beyond just the sheer volume of calls, and you just don't want to hurt anybody. And I think I've really come to 2 conclusions through the whole process, though. Can they play and can they pay? So you better make sure that you've got good grades. You better make sure that you have a belief that and an understanding that wrestling is a non-revenue sport. If you think it's all going to be paid for, it's very possible that it could be, but it's also very possibly that it couldn't be if you go exactly where you want to go. And you better be tough. I mean, you better be healthy. You better take your rehab serious. You better take your training serious because at the end of the day, somebody wants your spot. And so, again, I mean, our guys, the parents, I talk to the parents when we're building these teams, tell me about your son. He's a wrestlehead. That's my favorite term. He's a wrestlehead. All he wants to do is wrestle. He doesn't care about girls. He doesn't care about drinking. He doesn't care about vaping and partying and what color his hair is. What he wants to do is get in the room and scrap. And that's what we love.
Absolutely. And it is really cool to see that, when Dynasty comes to town and we see him walk in the building, it's very clear that you guys are always, it's a fun trip. It must be, but it is very clear that it is a business trip first.
100%. One,
Yeah.
100%. It's explained in detail to these young wrestlers, the sacrifice that their parents are making, the sacrifice. These young kids think because they had to cut 8 pounds, they made a huge sacrifice. And I try and explain to them, I'm a financial advisor. I'm a financial advisor by trade. So I try and explain to them, look, guys, if your parents spent $3,000 to get you here with taxes and FICA and Medicare and Social Security, they had to make $5,500 to get here. So let's make sure that we're being good stewards with the gifts and the money and everything that we're receiving, because if it's not going to be a good experience, it's a waste of money. Let's just do something else.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more, man. Well, thank you for taking the time here to jump on the horn with me. And I can't wait to see you obviously in a week, and I can't wait to see the team get after it. Any final thoughts for the people at home, sir?
Yeah, I want to make sure that everybody understands how great of a job guys like you do, Lucas, and Shane and Cody, and Coach Noble and Bassett and Monaretto and Muzakis and all the guys and gals that help us get this thing going. It's so much more than just making weight and robes. There's so much that goes into this, from the setup and the teardown. And our sport is getting a ton of traction because of guys like you. I said it at the freestyle event. I thanked you for everything that you do, whether you like it or not. You're media, and you're a big part of the media. And we just appreciate the hell out of the job that you do. We want you, the Dynasty parents, have one request. We want you commentating every one of our duels. No disrespect to the other commentators, but we like the job that you do. The guys. You take the extra time to really make sure that you understand what's going on. We love that about you. I'll never tell you no. As long as you don't ask me for money, I'll never tell you no.
Man, you guys look like you just had a blast having a conversation with one another. Did you guys just talk like a ton that wasn't recorded?
No. There's like 20 minutes on each side of the interview, including him wanting to fly me out to Nebraska, including he wants me to only do Dynasty duels at Elite 8, which comes at a price, Timothy. I love that dude, man. That whole Dynasty crew, they're awesome people, and they're wrestling people. So for me, those are the people I like being around anyway. So yeah, we had a lot of fun.
100%. And you know what? We have a tendency to kind of gravitate towards, and this is, I don't know what edition of Elite 8, but and we've done freestyle and folk style, and I think this is the 3rd or 4th edition of folk style, and we gravitate towards minions because for the most part, at least at the beginning of this, was mostly the Southeast crew, and that's not really the case anymore. Lots of Gorman's over on Powa, and Roundtree is here, and Stronghold is over from Alabama, and we've seen other teams kind of get introduced, and it also is fun to watch kids that we don't normally get to see, the Dynasties, the Beasts of the East, the Vision Quest, the other clubs, the Black Mambas last year before the tournament began, and you and I and the coach from Colorado hanging out and talking about the different things. How awesome is it to see the level of competition and everybody come in from all over the place?
I mean, that this is what it's all about for me. I mean, like, this is what the wrestling people, this is what we always want, is just to get everybody together, have a good time. Each night we'll go get some drinks at the bar, but when morning comes and whistles blow and we're scrapping.
And they are, dude. And they are.
4 guys ranked number 1 in the country, 7 ranked in the top 3 in their weight class. In top 5, you have 14 competitors in the top 5. In total, 80 top 20 wrestlers across the 12 teams. My God.
Yes. So I'm glad you brought that up, because that is this competition. And what we've done is there are, I think, 73 ranked matchups on day one. Day one. Not even when we get through, and the best teams are now wrestling each other on day 2. In pool play, 73 ranked kids will wrestle one another on 73 matchups of ranked kids. So 46 or whatever. But point is that the level of competition is unbelievable. And you know what? 10 a.m. Flow Wrestling It kicks off on Saturday morning. If you are not in Atlanta and you're going to tune in, we're going to give you a taste, just a taste of the different matchups you might want to watch in each of the different rounds. And I'm going to go ahead and throw it out there. 10 a.m. first round, there are 24 ranked matchups. 24 ranked matchups. Can you give me just a one or two or a couple from that 10 a.m. group that we might watch?
So from that 10 a.m. group, you go to Minion versus Roundtree, 145 pounds, number 4 in the country, Jackson Joy. He takes on number 7, Logan Paradise from Minions. That one to me has the makings of a barn burner. Like,
no doubt.
That one to me, they could put up 20 points. And I am putting a betting line out. How many pints of blood does Logan Paradise lose this weekend? The over-under, ladies and gentlemen, is 3.5. Please have your bets in by Friday night. The over-under. But no, that match is going to be incredible. And then another one that just intrigues me. 138 pounds. Kansas Marshals, Gavin Linsman goes up against Alex Braun. He's ranked number 6 in the country. And then right before that, number 13, Noah Nittinger, and number 14, Drew Gorman will go at it. That's at 132 pounds and 38 pounds. That's between Kansas Marshals and Power. Both those matches, very fascinating to me in all the right ways. So if you're...
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
If you're not a Georgian, but you want to see some Georgia guys outside their power, you have Drew Gorman. Mm-hmm. But for my Midwest people, that Marshals and Power duel round 1 is just your flavor.
Well, and Kansas Marshals, Power have 8 of the 24 ranked matchups sit in that duel alone. So that one might be duel of the round. Either that or Dynasty and Thunder looks incredible too. Yeah, Dynasty and Thunder is going to be superb. Is going to be superb as well. And you know what? I'm going to throw out one additional one in this round. Actually, 2 additional ones in this round. And you know what? We're going to just talk. We before we started this, we talked about doing only a certain number, and I can't stop. So no another one that you might want to pay attention to. 170 or 160 pounds, 2 Southeast kids. Kendrick Hodge in the first opening round. From Roundtree will wrestle Latrell Schaefer. Number 8 versus number 13. Florida State champ, Georgia State champ. I think 3 times state champs taking on one another. And then one weight class up in the Roundtree versus Minion duel, which is also a round 1 duel at 10 a.m. Dominic Bambinelli, number 10. Adam Waters, number 5 for Minion Legends. That is going to be a good matchup as well.
Which, hey, I'm going to say something. If you don't understand how good that duel is going to be, Roundtree could beat Minions. Like, and look at me when I say this. They actually could beat Minions. Like, this isn't the Roundtree that filled in at Elite 8 2 years ago when someone backed out. This is a Roundtree with Jake Krabs, Don Bambinelli, Blue Stifler, Sonny Kling, Jackson Joy, like
Antonio Mills.
Oh my God! How did I almost forget Antonio? They could very well beat Minions. Like, Minions better be ready. Round 1, like from the word go. I just want to make that clear to everybody.
Well, and I'll tell you that one of the things that I think everybody also needs to keep in mind, okay, according to the rankings, I don't think Antonio Mills is currently ranked. Darius Marines, who is a Michigan State champ, isn't currently ranked. The Bickertons that are down at the bottom of Roundtree's lineup out of Ohio, I believe. I don't think they're ranked, right? So we talked about all these ranked matchups, and yet they're not ranked, and yet Antonio Mills can go out and wrestle with anybody. So, I mean, just keep that in mind. All right, so noon on day 1. Day 1 again, still 14 ranked matchups, and there is a 1 versus 2 matchup at high noon on day 1.
At high noon, 113 pounds. Paul Kenny, Dom Monaretto. I am intrigued. That's a matchup that to me almost screams dream matchup. Like
Yep.
it's almost at that level. It's almost there. Like
Well,
two
I mean, we had Bassett versus Lillendahl last year. This is
bats and
along the same line.
That one lived up to the hype, and I think, like you said, it lives up. And then that Scarlet Knight and Dynasty duel. You also have JJ Peace and Seth Mendoza. That one's big for Peace. I feel like that one, if he could notch a win there,
And then you get the 285s, who are both two top 10s.
Yep, Pharrell and Herrera. Then that duel will be very fun to watch. Round two, another duel I'm intrigued by is Minions and Thunder. The match there that really gets me is 170 pounds. Number 7, Ryan Burton from Thunder versus number 5, Adam Waters at a Minion. That one should be a lot of fun.
And then you get Poway versus Roundtree as well in there.
Yep. Glatt and Schlett for me at 220 in that one. I'm intrigued by. Two top 10.
All right, so let's jump to 2:00 in the afternoon. Two matches for some of the teams. One match for some of the teams because they will be kind of filtering in. If everybody doesn't know, there are actually six teams in the pool, but you wrestle 4 matches. So you won't wrestle every single one. And there's 16 ranked matchups that won't happen in the pools that could have been superb.
There's one that makes me very mad. I wanted to see Forrest Craps too.
Yep. Jax Forrest versus Jake Craps. No doubt. That would have been fun. Landon Robidoux versus Paul Kelly. Number 5 versus number 6. Harvey Ludington versus Dial Capone VZ. Number 2 versus number 8.
Favorite name. That's my favorite name in the entire country. I need to get him on Fat and Scrappy just so I could coach him and say his name 100 times in a day.
Hey, speaking of which, have you sent your shirt to Bruce Baumgartner and Steve Mocco yet?
Yep.
You have?
Hey, oh, yeah. Mocco, I know Mocco got his.
Did you get a picture?
I told him, I said, he said he hasn't won it to a tournament yet. He said when he does, he will actually get a picture and send it to me. And I said, please do.
All right. So
Bruce wasn't as quick to say, yeah, I'll give you a picture of me wearing it. But honestly, I don't care. Like, that's still the greatest heavyweight of all time. I don't care.
All right. 2 p.m. Our third match, or third round of duels on day 1. Man, again, there are 11 ranked matchups in this one. Can you give me 1 or 2? There's so many we could talk about, but give me 1 or 2.
I mean, at 2 p.m., Holohan Lindemeyer and Sonny Kling at 184 pounds. That's between Thunder and Roundtree. That's ranks number 4 and 5, respectively. Earlier in that duel, Ryan Burton ranked number 7 and number 10, Don Bambinelli. That's one that Bambi wants that one. And then like Bambi and I have had a conversation about Elite 8, and he's like, I've had 2 really crappy Elite 8s, and I don't like it. So I'm very interested to see the way he comes out this weekend. I think he's coming out looking for heads.
All right. Very motivated.
Yes.
All right. So we move to 4 p.m. on day 1, round 4. And you know what? There's a lot of really, really good matchups in round 4. But I'm going to give you my favorite matchup. And really, honestly, there's so many of them.
I know where you're going.
Well, I'm going to go Bo Bassett versus Cooper Hilton, right?
Yeah.
Number 2 versus number 3. Dynasty versus Minions is going to be a great duel between the two teams. But Bassett versus Hilton is a superb matchup. Right after them at 145.
There's another super good one, Bazalkas and Paradise. And I feel like, man, Logan Paradise just needs one of these wins, bro. Like, he's right there. I mean, he needs one of them. He's made it clear to me. He said, I want Pearson again. He's like, I need that. I want to run that one back. Because he loves competing against Pearson. Like, they had an incredible match at Fargo. So I'm very interested to see him and Bazalkas get after it.
Well, and Pearson's so much fun to watch. I mean, it's just so much fun to kind of watch compete. and everything else. And you know what? He's got a good matchup. He's got a top 10 matchup also in that round. Him for Powa, Pearson's wrestling for Powa versus Leighton Schneider of Outlaw Black Ops. I think they're out of Oklahoma.
I believe so. Another good one in that duel. Or not in that duel, but in that round is Max Norman go up against Jordan Chapman. That's between Marshalls and Black Mambas. That one's also a very good one.
No doubt. In fact, Marshall's Black Mambas is going to be a really you know what? There's 4 really good duels that round, right? Dynasty Minions, Thunder Poway, Kansas Marshalls Black Mambas, and Powa versus Outlaw Black Ops.
So if you can't tell, ladies and gentlemen, have multiple computers going, watch all the duels at the same time.
Yeah, you know what? This is actually where I think everybody's like looking at us going, you're going to be there. And I'm going to be like, yeah, I'm going to be there. But you know, one of the things that's really hard is that I'm focused on one of these matchups. And, you know, there's another matchup going on over there. You're commentating on one of these matchups. You don't have any idea what's going on with some of the others.
Bro, it's the worst part where you're commentating. So I'm laser. Me and Holmes had it happen during the championship duel where we were laser focused on the final. And something was going on, like the third, fourth. I forget the gimmick. But I was laser focused, and I kept doing like the whole like I need you to be like doing the whole like, yeah, this is going on as I'm watching the other one.
All right, we end day 1 at 6 p.m. 6 p.m. duels has 8 ranked matchups. Probably the most interesting is Carnage versus Powa. It could be Kansas Marshalls versus Outlaw Black Ops, but Carnage versus Powa has some really good matchups, including Jake Hockaday versus Florida's Sebastian De Janeiro.
That was the one that I was kind of honing in on, but also in that dual meet, one that might fly under the radar. We were talking about Pearson Manville, Gabriel Buyasasu. I believe I say that name because I thought I heard someone say it. That will be one where I go up to the Carnage staff before the duel and say, hey. But I've watched him wrestle a couple of times, and I love his style. So I'm very interested to see him up against Pearson Manville. But Hockaday and De Janeiro, Duffy and Burden, and Botero and Moses Mendoza, every one of those matches are incredible.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. So that will end just day 1.
Yep.
I mean, and we don't even know what are the possible matchups for day 2 until that is all sorted out. And it's, you know, individual matchups are great. The duels get really exciting, super close. We've seen some really close duels over the last several years between some really good teams.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? I like jumping out on a limb.
All right.
My top 4 out of Pool A, in order: Dynasty, Minion, Roundtree, Highway, Thunder, Scarlet Knights. My top 4 in Pool B.
Hang on. I'm going to pause you for a second. I think that if he's underestimating anyone, it is Thunder.
Oh, wait. Oh, I'm underestimating Thunder. Well, when you look at Poway's team, and it's like Asada, Dotson, Kankaku, Brute, like Paul Kelly. Oh, yeah, they're losing to a bunch of bums, I guess. Yeah, like what are we talking about?
No,
all these
I know. I'm just saying. Thunder is a team that can maybe beat anybody in that group.
That's not the argument. I'm not disagreeing. I think Team Thunder is a bit. So I feel like a lot of people are underestimating Team Thunder, but I don't think so. No disrespect to Scarlet Knights. Think they're a little outgunned. So take away them for a second. But I think every duel in Pool A beside them are like 10, 12 point duels max. I think that top 5 is a group of death. Like, it's not necessarily that. Yeah. But in Pool B, I'm partially throwing darts.
Let's hear it.
So I'm going to go Carnage, Power, Black Ops, Mambas, Marshalls, Stronghold. Shout out Stronghold, pulling a lot of Alabama and Tennessee guys. But, yeah, I'm going Carnage. I just feel like a lot of these guys have been here before, and I feel like it's going to help out when you get to rounds 4 and 5, where maybe some of the Marshals and Black Ops guys that haven't been here. I feel like it will help in the long term of the dual meet.
All right. So first, Stronghold, I agree. I'm anxious to see how they wrestle and how they compete. I think it's fantastic to have another team from the Southeast. I wish Florida could, combine with them or bring some South Carolina, North Carolina kids in as well. North Carolina's been here before with combat. So I think it's always really good to have another team from the area and be able to compete, because there are definitely kids on those teams that can go out and compete with anybody. So it's a great opportunity. But you've said Marshall's number 5, and I think Marshals are 1 or 2.
Really?
I do. I don't know if they will be, but I think that they're 1 or 2.
I think it's very possible. I feel like Kansas is one of the teams I know the least about. Like, I'm outside looking and I don't know anybody from 26 and below. Of course, you hit Ninninger, Linsman, Giddens, Norman, Elijah Penton, Westfall, Christian Bell up top. So I feel like that they very well could be. Like, if they finish 2nd or 3rd, I won't be surprised. Like, it's not going to be surprising me. But just outside looking into this point.
All right. So you gave me your order for pools.
Lord, I know.
Who takes the ropes?
Man, here's what's funny, right? A lot of people called me a homer last year when I picked Minions. In a dual meet, we always talk about the road to 8, winning 8 matches. Monaretto, Mendoza, Forrest, Bassett, Scafaldi, Bazalkis, Barbosa. That's 7 right there. And then you throw in Ziola, Wenzel, Farrell, Caleb Noble. Dynasty, I think, have got better from last season. So I think Dynasty walks into Atlanta with the robes, and I think they walk out of them with the robes.
All right.
If I had to pick a final, I would not be surprised to see them and Carnage meet in the final, perhaps. Either them, then Powell looks really good. Powell can make the final.
Powell could make the finals.
As well, Minions. So I really think that there's like 7 teams that could win this tournament. Dynasty, Minions, Thunder, Carnage, Marshals, Roundtree, Black Ops, if things go their way. Like, this might be one of the deepest years of Elite 8, if that's how many teams can win it.
Yeah. So I agree with you in that I think that the sheer number of teams that are going to be in the hunt, don't be surprised. Don't be surprised if there are teams that all like a pool where you have every team has at least 1 loss.
Yeah,
and then it comes down to criteria.
I would almost be willing to say that's likely. Like, I almost think that's probable.
All right, guys, that was a long Essie and Scrappy this week, but we covered a ton. We will have a ton of coverage of Elite 8 for next week. And Lucas, I will see you in Atlanta in a few days, man.
I'm going to be getting there like Friday night.
All right. Can't wait. You can buy me a steak.
Deal.
All right, man. See ya.